This is the easiest text type to learn because its structure is so similar to an essay. Plus, it's the easiest to get great marks for. Easiest to learn, easiest to get great marks for. What's not to love about persuasive texts?
Everything you need to easily pass English ATAR. English ATAR made simple. Powered by Saints Coaching.
Welcome to the first lesson on persuasive texts. Please make sure you have seen the first lesson in this module called Intro to Module 5 before continuing with this lesson. Intro to Module 5 discusses some essential info for completing this module, including instructions on how to do it and some other fundamentals about the composing section. You will be doing yourself a massive disservice if you do anything in this module without having watched Intro to Module 5. Let's take a look-see at what we will be doing today. First up, we will highlight the type of persuasive text we're studying. Oh, it's so exciting. Nerd! After that, we will discuss Aristotle's categories of rhetoric. I don't think I could have backed up that nerd comment with anything more nerdy than Aristotle's categories of rhetoric. In discussing all of this, we will define rhetoric, then we'll define logos, pathos, ethos, and kairos. After that, we'll outline the structure of a persuasive speech. Specifically, we'll focus on the structure of the title, the structure of the introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. From there, we will compare text type structures, and after that, outline a simple summary and call it a day. Let's get this out of the way. Very important. What type of persuasive text are we studying? You saw it on the lesson objectives. We're going to focus on a persuasive speech. Why a persuasive speech? Short answer is a persuasive speech's structure is very similar to an essay's structure. Moving on, now let's turn to this nerdy topic, Aristotle's categories of rhetoric. I promise you I would not be going into this English lit theory stuff that I know, quite frankly, you couldn't give a shit about, unless it was directly relevant to learning the structure of a persuasive speech. Not only is this on the slide relevant to the structure of a persuasive speech, it actually informs the entire structure of the speech that we're about to learn. So without understanding these categories of rhetoric, you won't be able to understand the structure of a persuasive speech. Anyway, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher and scientist who coined 5 components of rhetoric. Logos is component number 1, pathos is component number 2, ethos is component number 3, kairos is component number 4, topos is component number 5. Topos refers to the use of familiar structures or conventions in rhetoric, such as problem, solution, question and answer, and so on. We're not going to discuss or refer to anything further about topos moving forward, mainly because it has no relevance for the structure of a persuasive speech that we're going to learn. So that leaves logos, pathos, ethos, and kairos as our remaining components that we're going to focus on in this lesson. I'm hoping these 4 remaining components sound similar, and that is because each one constitutes its own subsection in the Language Features Bible. You've got the best chance of writing a great persuasive speech if you have a really good understanding of all the language features that fall within these categories of rhetoric. Before we take a closer look at those remaining categories, I want to quickly address what this word rhetoric means. Here is our definition. Rhetoric is language designed to have a persuasive effect. What this means is if we're about to take a closer look at the categories of rhetoric, what these really are categories of persuasive language. It is for this reason that the persuasive devices section of the Language Features Bible is categorized according to these 4 categories of ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. Also, fun fact, understanding the definition of rhetoric illuminates the meaning of a rhetorical question. That is a question with an answer that is so obvious that it goes without saying. These questions are rhetorical because they have a persuasive effect. Moving on. Let's take a look at the definition of each of those categories, starting with logos. Logos involves the speaker appealing to the logic and reason of the audience. A mnemonic to remember what logos means is as follows. The L-O-G in logos can be seen in the L-O-G in logic. Logos involves appealing to logic. And here are the language features that appear beneath the logos subheading in the LFB. And this table is reproduced in the PDF study notes for this lesson. That's logos. How about pathos? The definition is as follows. Involves the speaker appealing to the values or emotions of the audience. Here is a mnemonic. We've got the same PATH in pathos appearing in the word sympathy and in the word empathy. Sympathy is feeling sorrow for someone else's misfortune, whereas empathy is understanding someone else's feelings. When you say, I feel sorry for you, you have sympathy. And when you say, I feel you, you have empathy. And here are the language features that appear beneath the pathos subheading in the LFB. Moving on, here is the definition of ethos. This one involves the speaker appealing to the authority or credibility of himself, herself, or themselves. A mnemonic for this one, we see the ETH in ethos also appears in ethics. Ethics refers to the principles that govern a person's behavior, and the principles that govern a person's behavior are related to their authority and credibility as a person. Relevant language features, we have the following, only 4. And finally, we've got the definition of kairos. Kairos involves the speaker conveying a sense of opportunity and urgency to the audience. A mnemonic for this one, only the 1-letter similarity. I was clutching at straws here. We see the O in kairos appears in opportunity, and opportunity relates to what kairos involves doing, which is creating a sense of urgency and opportunity at the audience. Here are some language features that relate to this final category of rhetoric. Those are all our categories. Don't worry if it's all a bit confusing and a bit abstract. Remember, these categories are important because they inform the way our persuasive speech is structured. The overarching purpose of this lesson is for you to understand how to structure a persuasive speech, not to memorize the categories of rhetoric or what they mean or their examples. In other words, as long as you can understand how these categories appear in the structure that we're about to have a look at, you're all good. And that is a good segue to the structure of a persuasive speech. I was researching persuasive speeches as I was creating the structure of a persuasive speech that we're about to take a look at. There were 3 themes among all the resources I read about persuasive speeches. These 3 things kept popping up in all the resources. The first one is Aristotle's components of rhetoric. The second one is rhetorical devices. The third is the structure of the paragraphs. This structure of a persuasive speech that we're about to learn blends all the best parts from those 3 themes and all the resources into one scaffold. What this means is if you follow this structure, your response will have all the important things a waste marker looks for in a persuasive text. So if you're wondering why this structure is so specific, that's why. It ensures you will write a well-rounded persuasive text. Also, I think it's pretty helpful to have a detailed outline of something that you can essentially just copy and paste in any response. That's what this is for the structure of a persuasive speech. Let's start with an overview of the structure before we get into the nitty-gritty of it. We've built up a lot of anticipation about this structure. Should we just take a look at it? Okay, here it is. Let's take a moment of silence to appreciate its beauty. Moving on, let's take a look at each part of this thing, starting with the structure of the title. This is the title in that overview of the structure we saw a few seconds ago. The title has 3 components. The first one is the title, the next one is the subtitle, and the third one is the byline. TSB. Or, I like to say, terrifying super bear. Terrifying super bear is the mnemonic that you can use to help you remember what the elements of the title are. Starting with the title. The title should be, firstly, short and intriguing. Note, alliteration and puns are great ways to make the title sound interesting. Next element of the title is the subtitle, and the subtitle gives additional information about the contents of the persuasive speech. From there, we have the byline, and this provides contextual information about the delivery of the persuasive speech. And that contextual information includes the following aspects. Firstly, we mentioned the speaker's name, then the speaker's occupation, the date of delivery of the speech, and finally the context of the delivery. That all sounds like a bit much, but when we have a look at an example, you'll see it's actually pretty straightforward. Firstly, we have the title. Then we've got the subtitle, and then we have the byline. Turning to those 4 aspects of the byline, firstly, we've got the speaker's name. In this example, Jeremy Fitzgibbons. Then we have the speaker's occupation. In this example, Jeremy is a Michelin star chef. Moving on, we have the date of delivery, 28 August 2020. Then we've got the context of the delivery, and this is really getting at who the audience is and where the speech was delivered. So that is the structure of the title and its 3 elements. Let's turn to the structure of the introduction, which we also know as the top funnel. Did you miss it? I certainly did. Throwback to Module 4. And here are our elements of the top funnel, starting with activate. Then introduce, contextualize, reasons, and thesis. The theme of the top funnel is ethos. AICRT isn't really that memorable, so let's use the following mnemonic instead. Artificial intelligence can really tell. Let's take a look at each element, starting with the activate. The activate is 1 to 3 sentences that relate to the overarching topic and capture the audience's attention. A few notes regarding this one. Consider using one or more of the following devices in the activate: anecdote, hypothetical situation, provocative statement, rhetorical question. Next element of the top funnel is the introduce element. This one requires you to do the following. Firstly, to introduce yourself by stating what your name, age, or occupation is. Then you have to outline your qualifications and experience, such as number of years working in the given field. And finally, it requires you to say something that establishes some commonality with the audience, and we can think of this as giving the audience some social proof that you're an average human being just like them. By the way, you can create and use a fictional persona in your persuasive speech. Moving on to the next element, contextualize. This one requires you to firstly outline the overarching topic, and secondly, emphasize how and why the topic is relevant to the audience. Next up, we've got the reasons element. This is very similar to the body paragraphs element of an introduction for a responding section response. It involves highlighting the 3 main reasons that support your overarching argument. Our final element in the top funnel is the thesis, and this is 1 concise statement, no more than 2, that highlights what your overarching argument is. Your thesis is like the thread that runs through your entire speech. Everything you say is designed to support it. And that is the structure of the introduction. Here is a key takeaway in relation to it. Ethos is the theme of the intro. Remember, this is the category of rhetoric that involves the speaker appealing to the authority or credibility of himself, herself, themselves. Now let's move on to the structure of the body paragraphs, which we already know is the tube. This is what the tube looks like in a persuasive speech. It starts with the topic sentence, moves to the elaboration, then an example, an explain, and a link. Wait a second, this is just like a responding section body paragraph. You'd think so, but wait. After the link, we have the transition sentence. This first body paragraph, known as reason 1, has logos as a theme. Body paragraph 2 has the same element as body paragraph 1. It's known as reason 2, and it also has logos as a theme. The third body paragraph of the persuasive speech varies a little bit from the first 2. We've still got the topic sentence, we've still got the elaboration, except instead of going to an example, we go to the rebut. Then we have the example, then the explain, and then a link. This final body paragraph is different from the first 2 because it is the counter argument paragraph that also includes reason 3. The theme of this third body paragraph is pathos. Before we move on, a quick note about how many body paragraphs you should write. In module 4, I said that 3 body paragraphs is the minimum number of body paragraphs you should write in your responding section essay. Writing a 4th body paragraph is great as long as writing that 4th body paragraph doesn't compromise on the quality of writing the first 3. I suggest aiming for 4 in the responding section because it's worth 40% of your exam And as we'll see in Module 6, I recommend you spend a little bit longer than 60 minutes on your responding section response. Why am I saying all of this? Because I don't think it's necessary to write a fourth body paragraph for your persuasive speech if you follow this structure. It covers everything, plus the human brain most effectively remembers things in threes. So if we present 3 reasons why the audience should agree with our overarching argument, in theory, the audience would be more receptive to those 3 reasons than they would to 4 reasons. In short, just follow this structure on the slide and don't worry about writing a fourth body paragraph. Let's hone in on the structure of the tube and focus on the structure of the first 2 body paragraphs, which, as we just saw, have the same structure. The elements are a bit different from teal because we've got this added T at the end to make it tealed. So here is a great mnemonic. Together, everyone enjoyed edible lolly toys. 10 points for creativity. Turning to the topic sentence element first. This is just a sentence that outlines the first or second reason the audience should agree with your overarching argument, which is your thesis. From the topic sentence, we have the elaboration element, and this is a sentence that firstly provides additional detail about something that was mentioned in the topic sentence, or it states information that you didn't include in the topic sentence because it would have made it too wordy. Hopefully you're seeing the similarities between these elements in the body paragraph of a persuasive speech and the elements of a body paragraph for a responding section response. Looking at the example is a few sentences that refer to an example or rhetorical device that substantiates your topic sentence. For the example in reason 1, body paragraph 1, consider using devices such as facts and stats, examples, and evidence. For reason 2, body paragraph 2, consider using the following devices: expert opinions and quotes, formal language, jargon, or technical terminology. By the way, it goes without saying all the features that I mentioned in this lesson and in the PDF study notes for the lesson are found in the LFB. Also, it's important to remember that the composing section assesses your ability to compose a persuasive, interpretive, or imaginative text using relevant language and structural features. The composing section isn't assessing the accuracy of the information you write. What I'm really getting at here is this: you can make up realistic and believable facts and statistics, evidence, expert opinions and quotes, etc. in the composing section. Don't exaggerate them or make them unbelievable, because then that will have the opposite effect of persuading your audience, who is the waste marker. If they can see that you're just making shit up, they won't be persuaded of your argument, and that is the ultimate goal of this type of text. Make it believable, make it more persuasive. After the example, we've got the explain. The explain is approximately 2 to 4 sentences that firstly explain the significance of the example and secondly explain how it's relevant to the topic sentence. From there, we've got the link. The link is 1 sentence, no more than 2, that summarizes the body paragraph's content and links it to your thesis. Remember, the link essentially involves writing a reworded and more concise version of your topic sentence. It reiterates the main points of the body paragraph so they don't fall out of the marker's brain. Don't mind a bit of ASMR and some English ATAR made simple. The link is the zip in the Ziploc bag. Nothing's falling out. Last but not least, we've got the transition. This is 1 sentence that segues to the next paragraph by hinting at what it's about. To wrap up our discussion of the first 2 paragraphs, here is a key takeaway. The theme of those paragraphs is logos. Logos is the category of rhetoric that involves the speaker appealing to the logic and reason of the audience. Dribble. Let's take a look at the structure of the third body paragraph. As we saw, this one has a slightly different structure to the first 2. The structure is different because a great persuasive text requires you to acknowledge counterarguments. What do I mean by counterarguments? A counterargument is an argument that opposes your own. It is counter to your own argument or belief. For example, assume I write a persuasive speech that argues that English is the best subject ever. I present my first 2 reasons in my first 2 body paragraphs, 1 in each. Then, at the beginning of my third and final body paragraph, I acknowledge the following counterargument. English is subjective and there's no right way to do it. it sucks. Then I rebut that counter-argument by raising my own third reason as to why English is the best subject. And that third reason is that there's this course called English ATAR Made Simple, and it actually just makes English objective and shows the right way to do it. Oh, very funny. Anyway, you might wonder why acknowledging a counter-argument is important in a persuasive text. The plain and simple reason is that acknowledging a counter-argument makes you come across as fair and less biased. In turn, that ultimately makes it more likely that the audience will agree with what you're saying. Put another way, if you don't acknowledge any sort of flaw in your argument, the audience can't help but think that what you're saying is too good to be true or you're hiding something. That is why we have the rebut element, and here are all the elements enlarged. Terriel goes to the ebooks rating enjoyed everyone's love. Let's have a chat about the topic sentence. Similar to the other two, this is a sentence that outlines a significant counter-argument or doubt that the audience might have regarding your thesis. The elaboration is a sentence that elaborates on the merit or merits of the counter-argument. The elaboration element in this third body paragraph is basically a concession. Check out the entry for a concession in the LFB for more info. Next element is the rebut element. As we've already alluded to, this element is a sentence or two that outlines why the counter-argument is flawed or misguided. Also remember that the rebut element really constitutes your third reason why the audience should agree with what you're saying. Put differently, the rebut does what the topic sentence elements do in the first two body paragraphs, but it also counters the counter-argument. From the rebut, we have the example. The example is a few sentences that refer to an example rhetorical device that substantiates your rebuttal. This example backs up your third reason. And for this example, consider using any combination of the following devices. Take a closer look at this in the PDF study notes if you'd like. Turning to the explain is approximately 2 to 4 sentences that explain the significance of the example and how it's relevant to the topic sentence. Finally, we have the link. The link is one sentence, no more than 2, that summarizes the body paragraph's contents and links it to your thesis. Remember, the link involves writing a reworded and more concise version of your topic sentence, and it reiterates the main points of the body paragraph so they don't fall out of your marker's head. Here is a key takeaway in relation to this third body paragraph of your persuasive speech. The theme is pathos. Pathos is the category of rhetoric that involves the speaker appealing to the values or emotions of the audience. Turning to the final aspect of this structure for a persuasive speech, we've got the bottom funnel, which is the conclusion. Here is our bottom funnel, and here are our elements of it. We've got the thesis, then the reasons element, looking a bit sad. Then we have the call to action element, and finally the general statement. The theme of this paragraph, the final one in our persuasive speech, is kairos. 4 elements, TRCG, but I like to refer to them as trained rats catch goats. Let's talk about the thesis element of the conclusion. The thesis restates the thesis element of the introduction, but with different words and syntax or sentence structure. Moving to the reasons element, this one firstly is 1 to 2 sentences that summarize the main point of each body paragraph. Here you should basically summarize the 3 reasons and the 1 counter-argument. In this reasons element, you should also indicate the relevance of the 3 reasons to the thesis. This element is very similar to the body paragraphs element of conclusions for responding section responses. Next element is the call to action or CTA. The CTA requires you to firstly tell the audience to do one thing that relates to your thesis. It also requires you to underscore the urgency of the audience doing that thing. Here's a hot tip for the CTA. Make it actionable and specific. Here's an example of a non-actionable and unspecific CTA. Go and establish digital boundaries. Here's an example of an actionable and specific CTA. Go and create a focus mode on your phone called deep work that prevents you from accessing any social media that you use on a daily basis. If it is actionable and specific, your audience is more likely to do it because there's no uncertainty. Finally, we've got the general statement. The general statement is a a statement that exaggerates the significance of the topic and your overarching argument, which is your thesis. Note regarding the general statement. The general statement is a great opportunity for you to refer back to the device you used in the activate element of the introduction. For instance, an anecdote. Doing this creates a circular structure and enhances the whole text's cohesiveness. There'll be a few examples of this a bit later on. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense for now. A key takeaway about conclusions, its theme is kairos. Kairos is the category of rhetoric that involves the speaker conveying to the audience a sense of urgency or opportunity. That concludes our discussion of the structure of a persuasive speech. Now let's see how it compares to other text type structures that we've discussed in AIMS. Here's an overview of the comparison table. I'm not going to go into it in agonizing detail in this video. It's reproduced in the PDF study notes. If persuasive texts aren't your first preference, you would have already seen this table in the structure lesson for interpretive or imaginative texts. However, don't disregard this section of the lesson just because you've already seen this table before. Obviously, our focus in this lesson is on persuasive texts, so it will be useful to look at this table through that lens. Over here, we'll be looking at the relevant component of the persuasive speech structure, and over here, we've got various text types that we look at in AIMS. We know an essay doesn't have a title. We know the persuasive speech does. A blog post also does, and so does a short story. The next component is the introduction or beginning. Here are the elements of an introduction for an essay, the elements of the introduction for a persuasive speech, a blog post, and a short story. I've tried to color code the elements across these various text types so there is an underlying theme. For instance, the reasons element in the introduction for a persuasive speech is very similar to the body paragraphs element of an intro for an essay. That's why they're both green. Next component of a persuasive speech, we've got the body paragraphs or the middle. This is what a body paragraph looks like for an essay, standard teal structure. Here's a body paragraph for a persuasive speech, or at least the first two body paragraphs of a persuasive speech. This is what one section of the middle part of a blog post looks like, and similarly for a short story. Body paragraph 2 for an essay, also teal. Body paragraph 2 for a persuasive speech, same as BP1, except it's just the second reason, a blog post, and then a short story. BP3, teal for an essay. BP3 is the counter argument and reason 3 for a persuasive speech. For a blog post, it is section 4 or main idea 3, and for a short story, it is the climax. The final component is the conclusion. For an essay, this is just your standard TTBG. Tick, tock before gram. For a persuasive speech, the theme is kairos and it's TRCG, or trained rats catch goats. For the blog post, it is section 5 or the conclusion, and then for the short story, it is the resolution. So that's a comparison of the structure of each main text type in AIMS. I've personally found this whole comparison table very useful in remembering each text type structure, and I hope you do too. That is all the main content for the lesson. Let's do a simple summary. First section of the lesson, the type of persuasive text we're studying, it's a persuasive speech. We know that by now. Let's move on. We then discussed Aristotle's categories of rhetoric. Started with a definition of rhetoric, and that definition is it's language designed to have a persuasive effect. Then we looked at the definition of logos, which involves the speaker appealing to the logic and reason of the audience. LOG in logos is also in logic. Turning to pathos, this involves the speaker appealing to the values or emotions of the audience. PATH in pathos also appears in sympathy and empathy. Then we had ethos, and ethos involves the speaker appealing to the authority or credibility of himself, herself, or themselves. The ETH in ethos also appears in the word ethics. Finally, we had kairos, and this involves the speaker conveying a sense of urgency and opportunity to the audience. The O in kairos is also in opportunity. After we got that theory stuff out of the way, we looked at the main section of this lesson, which was all about the structure of a persuasive speech. The structure of the title is as follows. Firstly, our mnemonic is terrifying super bear. The T in that acronym stands for the title, and this should be short and intriguing. To make it short and intriguing, consider using alliteration or a pun. The S stands for subtitle, and this gives additional information about the content of the persuasive speech. After the S, we have the B for byline, and this provides contextual info, namely the speaker's name, occupation, date of delivery, context of delivery. And from there, we discuss the structure of the introduction, which is the top funnel. Our mnemonic is artificial intelligence can really tell. And the theme of this paragraph, the introduction, is ethos. The A in the mnemonic stands for activate. The activate is 1 to 3 sentences that relate to the overarching topic and capture the audience's attention. The I in the acronym stands for introduce. Here, you introduce yourself, you outline your qualifications or experience, and you say something that establishes some commonality with the audience. The C stands for contextualize, and this is where you outline the overarching topic and also enhance how or why it's relevant to the audience. Second last element in this paragraph is the reasons element, and this is where you highlight 3 main reasons that support your overarching argument. Lastly, we've got the thesis. The thesis is a concise statement that highlights what your overarching argument is. Then we had the structure of the body paragraphs, which is the tube of the drinking funnel. Firstly, we discussed the structure of the first 2 body paragraphs, which are reason 1 and reason 2 respectively. The mnemonic for these paragraphs is together, everyone enjoyed edible lolly toys, and the theme of both paragraphs is logos. The T stands for topic sentence, and this should outline the first or second reason the audience should agree with your overarching argument. The E stands for elaborate, and this provides additional detail about something mentioned in the topic sentence or states information you didn't get to include in the topic sentence. The next E is example, and here you should refer to an example or rhetorical device that backs up your topic sentence. The explain then explains the significance of the example and how it's relevant to your topic sentence. The link summarizes the body paragraph's content and links it to your thesis. Finally, the transition element segues to the next paragraph by hinting at what it's about. That's the structure of the first 2 body paragraphs of the tube. Then we discuss the structure of the third one. This is the counter-argument and reason 3 body paragraph. A mnemonic for this one is the ebook's rating enjoyed everyone's love, and the theme is pathos. The T in this mnemonic stands for topic sentence. It's a sentence that outlines a significant counter-argument or doubt the audience might have regarding your thesis. After the topic sentence, we have the elaborate, and this elaborates on the merit or merits of that counter-argument. From there, we've got the rebut, and this outlines why that counter-argument is flawed or misguided, and it also introduces your reason 3. From the rebut, we've got the example. Here, refer to an example or rhetorical device that substantiates your rebuttal. Then we've got the explain. This one explains the significance of the example and how it is relevant to the topic sentence. Finally, we've got the link. The link summarizes the body paragraph's content and links it to your thesis. The final component of the structure of a persuasive speech is the conclusion, the bottom funnel. The mnemonic is trained rats catch goats, and the theme is kairos. The T is the thesis, and the thesis restates the thesis element of the introduction with different words and different syntax. The R stands for reasons. This one summarizes the main point of each BP and indicates the relevance of reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3 to the thesis. From this element, we go to the CTA. This tells the audience to do something that's relevant to your thesis, and it underscores how urgently important it is for the audience to do so. Last element is the general statement. This one exaggerates the significance of the topic and your overarching argument in relation to it. After that, we did a comparison of text type structures. That is in the PDF study notes. Go check it out for a closer look. And that is it for this lesson. Hopefully you're feeling more confident about writing a persuasive speech now that you've seen that its structure is very similar to an essay that you would write in the responding section. As we saw in this lesson, and as we'll see in the coming lessons, persuasive language features are essential parts of persuasive texts. In light of that, the PDF activities for this lesson get you to start reviewing language features again if you have, for whatever reason, stopped reviewing them since the relevant lesson in Module 2. Make sure you read the instructions carefully, and all the best with that. I'll see you in the next one, which is another beautiful planning lesson. Until then, keep it simple.